45. Brown, 45. Hot, 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 hot.
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Alrighty, joining us now is a man who's making some real changes down in Gridiron, down under, a professional money man that has dominated directing at the state level, ended up at the job nationally, the chairman of Gridiron Australia, Mr. Bret Mullavey. I already stuffed it. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, actually.
I was going to stuff it. We spoke about this 2 seconds ago. How are you? You good?
Yeah, really well. Appreciate you guys having me on. And no, you nailed the name. Oh, yeah, I get all sorts. So that's you've done brilliantly.
Yeah, Mullavey was what I was going to go with. So we do have our usuals, TC24 and Danny Webb. Boys, how are you?
Good, Tommy. How you going, mate?
Yeah, good. You're looking... I like the little bit of tuft you're going on.
A little bit of Daniel Leave.
It's a little Daniel Leave
rollover for sure.
Nah, nice. It isn't about you two boys, though. So we are all over Brett today. So we normally start with, for the younger blokes that we have, we're going to get straight into it, that we've had on lately from college. I like to find out who they would have at a party, like 3 guys or 3 people that they have, dead or alive, that they have at a party, just to see what they're like. But they're all college students. So I really want to pick the brain of someone who's actually been in the real world and you know, get an idea of who you would have as 3 people at a dinner party.
Right, okay. Okay, who would I want to spend a bit of time with?
Yeah.
Number one, it would be... This is going to be a bit of a boring one, but Nick Saban from Alabama. I love Coach Saban. I think he's brilliant. Number 2 would be Anthony Kiedis from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Ooh.
That'd be an interesting mix, I think. And maybe 3, for any Formula One fans out there, Kimi Räikkönen.
Oh,
Kimi.
Yeah. Big Kimi.
Those 3 could be pretty interesting in a room together, I think. So
Interesting call because Kimi's notorious for being a bit of an Iceman. Like,
Yeah.
so he would potentially ruffle some feathers at that party.
Enjoys a beer though, so
Yeah.
I reckon after a couple really
Bit of a lad. Yeah.
Why is Nick Saban a boring one?
Probably not a boring one. Probably a traditional
stock
football
standard,
one.
yeah.
I think, man, that guy's probably seen everything in the sport, everything from the NFL to college and everything in between. I think he'd have some stories. So
He's got a bit of a rep too, of like, you know,
Straight down.
doesn't smile.
He's
He's
very
pretty,
Bill Belichick kind.
yeah, you know, gets the job done kind of thing.
Did you guys see the bit of a controversy yesterday? I think it was Alabama basketball had a bit of an issue with one of their players, superstar players, and I don't think he was suspended for whatever reason. And Alabama just suspended a player yesterday for speeding and some other things. And yeah, Nick dismissed him from the team directly and had a direct shot at the Alabama basketball head coach.
So he's the football coach and he's dismissing basketball players.
No. So he there was an incident with Alabama basketball, and I believe the player wasn't suspended.
Okay.
And there was a similar situation with Alabama football. And they suspended him straight away and threw a shot over the bow.
There is no shit taking from them. That's why
So
they
this is
are
how it's
number
done.
one.
This is how you should be doing it.
Yeah, which is pretty rare to see that from 2 college coaches. You know, normally the basketball coach and the football coach are sort of on the same page. But no, Alabama football is just on another level, and they run their own rules.
You mentioned in talking that you're more of a college man, more over the college system. So is that being like I didn't know Alabama basketball was any good, to be fair, before this March Madness.
Yeah.
Is it rare for the like coaches of football and basketball to actually commingle?
Normally they're sort of on the same page. The reason I love college sports so much more than the NFL is just the drama and the theatre that goes along with it. Like everything from the marching band through to the supporters, through to the alumni, the boosters, and then you don't just have college football. You've got college basketball, college women's basketball, volleyball, tennis, swimming. And they're all just so massive. And I think the politics and the drama that goes on at that level is just like a soap opera.
Have you followed March Madness?
Yeah. Texas. Honestly, I've probably only watched 2 Texas basketball games this year, and they've both been the last 2 games. So I'm not a huge college hoops man, but certainly March Madness, and all the upsets the last couple of weeks have been awesome.
Yeah, God, it's good. Purdue, they stuck, but that's another story. I've noticed in research about you that your working life has been around Melbourne, in and around Melbourne. But I was wondering, are you a Melbourne boy? Have you grown up here?
So originally I'm from a little town called Walla Walla, which is just north of Albury Wodonga. So grew up town, sort of 600 population. I only had about 8 people in my year at school. So it was pretty, very different. And then I moved to Albury during high school, and then spent a little bit of time up in Queensland and then back in Melbourne. But no, yeah, so certainly didn't grow up here, but I've been here for now 12 years and sort of call it home. I'll probably never leave. Yep. Unless it was to move to the States. This is home for me now. But yeah, I love it.
If you were to move to the States, where would you move to?
It'd be Austin. And honestly, so even though I have my own job, my sole, hopefully my fiance doesn't listen to this, but my sole goal in life. Probably
She's a big listener to the podcast, so she will be.
Hopefully she does listen.
Yeah. But my goal is to earn enough money here in Australia that I can just retire in Austin, and whether they just want me marking the fields and just pottering around helping, that's my goal, I think.
Groundskeeper.
Yeah, just nothing better.
Or GM somewhere. Whatever's going. Yeah.
If you've never marked an American football field, you got to do it once in your life. I enjoy it. I think it's a therapeutic experience because there's obviously so many bloody lines, and it's very, it's very precise. So I'll head out to my local club's Croydon. So I'll head out there on a Friday after work before we play games and just have a beer, push the paint machine around. It's
put the headphones on, chuck it. Yeah, that's good.
It's brilliant.
Any given Sunday when the
Yeah.
What away.
It's a good experience. So when the season starts, I'll have to get you guys down to give us a hand, and you got to do it once in your life.
Play oath.
I'm all for it. How anal are you though? Like if I do a 9-yard line, is that all right?
No. We're pretty precise. We've got a really good.
I won't let you have that either.
Good
I can't have
OCD
that.
kicking in over
I can't
there.
have that.
Actually, both of you boys would be the same, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's no good for me.
You really pick it up because we've got a bit of an elevated ground. Like you can see if someone stuffs it up. There's little markings. So yeah, we're pretty precise. Take a lot of pride in it. We mark all the numbers. Big CR in the centre of the field. It's good fun.
Yeah, that sounds great. Coloured CR or just a white?
White for the time being. We did have we did paint the end zones for one game, but it rained. And all the players turned blue. Blue end zones. So obviously we're not using the same quality level of field marking that those guys do, and we ruined a whole bunch of uniforms. So we haven't done that again.
Lucky they've got the chairman on their board. It's all right, boys. We've got it covered this time. But you mentioned that you have your own business. You've got a background in the financial sector, being the money man that I mentioned. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your business and FintCap? Am I right with saying that?
Yeah. So look, my background's banking. Had a 10-year sentence at the major banks and got out of there. And I started my own operation around about 4 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, and haven't looked back since. So yeah, I won't get into the world of mortgages and finance, not the most sexy topic. But I sort of that's what I do in my 9 to 5, and then American football is my real passion. Prior to American football, I was really involved in motorsport. That was sort of my background. And then I've only been involved in the world of American football since end of 2018. I stumbled down to my local club and I'd obviously been a massive passive fan for a long time before that, but I only had active involvement in Gridiron Australia and football in Australia since 2018.
So when would you say that love with NFL sort of started with you, or the passive fan kind of thing? What was your sort of first exposure to that?
I can tell you exactly, actually.
Yeah.
It was,
It was a drizzly Tuesday.
Yeah.
It was 2013. Texas played Texas A&M, and it was broadcast on ESPN. And I was at home in Albury, and I remember watching it, and I was like, "What is this? This is just incredible!" I just stumbled across a game, and just fell in love with it. I was like, "Yeah." I knew about American football, and then I just seen a college game, and I just was hooked ever since, and started getting on the forums and following them on the socials, and I was like, "This is unreal." And then always wanted to get a little bit more involved in it, so I followed Texas and college football pretty closely after that, and then wanted to get involved a little bit more locally, and funnily enough, my sister worked with someone who was the president at the Croydon Rangers. And they said, "Hey, just come along and come give us a hand." So I wandered along, and for the first year was just an assistant wide receivers coach, and just learnt the game, and then just sort of got more involved from there. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind adventure the last 3 or 4 years, but that was my start.
Yeah, things have obviously happened quickly. Were you an administrator in motorsport or just a fan? Like, is that sort of...
I actually used to compete competitively in like go-karting for...
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird story.
As a younger...
Yeah, so I started when I was 8. I sort of grew up in motorsport. A lot of my sort of friends from that time have gone on to V8s and whatnot.
Yeah,
I never
right.
raced against Ricardo.
He wasn't up to your standards.
He was like around the scene at the same time, but he was obviously a WA boy. They didn't get over this way too often. But a lot of the V8 guys I sort of grew up around and knew, but I never went along with it. You know, it's a pretty expensive sort of hobby motorsport.
Yeah.
Numbers start racking up pretty quickly. So then I sort of competed up until I was about 23, 24. And then I left motorsport, but I had a real, I always liked to be involved in something competitive. And I'd never actually done a lot of team sport stuff before. So that was obviously, I wanted to do something in that space. And when I got out of competing for myself, I wanted to do something, be part of a team again. So joined Croydon, and that's taken over my life.
And still involved at Croydon, obviously.
Yeah, so Croydon's a really interesting one, right? So joined there 2018, and the coach that we'd brought over, Croydon's got a big push into bringing over foreign coaches to train the team and whatnot. 2018, we had a coach by the name of Lee Rose who came over, and Coach Rose was actually, he played at Indiana, and his father is a bit of a legend in the Carolina football coaching space. He came over to Croydon, and I sort of got to learn off him for a season, and that really sort of fueled my love for the game and the analytics and the schemes and everything. And Coach Rose actually went back. He went to the Warsaw Eagles after us. He was from the Warsaw Eagles, came to Croydon, went back to the Warsaw Eagles, head coach there for a year, and then went back to Indiana to coach, and now he's at University of North Carolina, UNC with Mac Brown. And that really sort of fueled my love for the game. So then 2019, I got involved with Croydon in their committee because there was a bit of void with ex-president. He stepped away. He had a lot going on in his life. So James Arthur became president, and I sort of stepped in as vice president, just sort of an assistant. And Croydon at the time, we had all the ingredients for a really successful club. And I don't think successful clubs are rocket science. I think you just got to have some good people involved, have a really good presence socially, make it easy for people to get involved in the sport. And in my Gridiron Australia space, I'm always saying to people, like, we don't have to sell the sport. There are so many fans of American football here in Australia.
Absolutely.
They love it. It's not like lacrosse, where we've sort of got to build a bit of a case as to why you want to play lacrosse. We've just got to make it easy for people to understand who we are, where we are, and how to get involved. Okay, and if we do those things, we can really grow quickly. So Croydon went from having 2 junior teams that were on the brink of survival, and in the last 3 years, just through social media presence, like we try to put out a really sexy brand out there, really cool videos, cool photos. Now the biggest club in the country. Our junior program is, there's probably 80, 90 kids involved. We've got a few announcements over the next couple of weeks, but we're going to have 9 kids go to the States in the last 2 years. Not all college, high schools, quarterbacks, running backs. We've got a running back at St. John Bosco, #1 high school in America at the moment. I think that's a really good example of the potential of American football here locally, is if you just put all the right pieces of the puzzle together, make it easy for kids to get involved, give them access to the right coaches. I think Australian athletes are pound for pound the best in the world, especially growing up around rugby and AFL. It's a very dynamic sport. And then when they transition to something like American football, there's obviously a huge learning curve, but we translate really, really well. And I think Croydon's a good example of that. So, last year we had 141 members, clubs in a good position financially. We've got, just with Maruna Council, built a new facility, probably the best gridiron facility in Australia. It's a beautiful field, and it's going from strength to strength. So, hopefully this year we're looking at having 7 teams, which will be massive. And it's in the middle of Croydon. No disrespect to Croydon, but you wouldn't think that Croydon has this massive American football club that is hopefully training future NFL stars. And then to go on a bit of a run here, 2020 got involved with Gridiron Victoria. So there was just a bit of a need that it was a real 2-speed economy. Gridiron in Victoria has some really strong clubs and some emerging clubs, and felt that for Croydon to be strong, we needed to have a strong league and a strong competition for our kids to play against and our men's to play against. So just joined Gridiron Victoria and just assisted the chairman at the time in implementing some basic things like let's establish a bit of a social media presence. Let's make it easy for people to find information, and then just work through what that experience is like for the first time down at a club. Are they enjoying it? Do they feel welcome? Do they understand what position they're playing? Do they get the basic tools around how to get involved? And then, from a similar challenge, then I sort of noticed a need from Gridiron Australia that it was very disjointed. We had every state was doing things a little bit differently. Some things were really good, some things were not so good, and just needed to align things a little bit more. So I put my hand up for Gridiron Australia in July last year, and then moved to the chairman role in October, November last year. So, yeah, honestly, it feels like 2 years since we've done it because there's just been such a huge amount of work in the last 5 months. But yeah, I think we've got some really good momentum. The sport is at such a critical time here. We've got all the ingredients for this thing to be incredible. We've got fan interest it's never been higher, and I think it's only going to keep growing. We've got the NFL's presence here, which is a really, really exciting thing. The NFL obviously sees this as a strategic location for them. Brilliant for us. The emergence of NFL flag and that being in the Pro Bowl now, and there's talk of that going in the Olympics. That's a really exciting time. And then I think there are some other sports that are experiencing some huge challenges at the moment. I think if I was to look at the competitor codes out there, I think soccer's facing into some challenges with their professional league in the next couple of years with their Premier League. Rugby, I don't think has a great culture that surrounds it. I think a lot of young families are hesitant to put their kids into rugby. I think AFL's done an incredible job through Auskick and their grassroots competitions. But I think there is a huge opportunity for American football to become not a tier 1 code. I think we're probably 15, 20 years away from that, but certainly a tier 2, tier 3 football code here. I think we've got great potential, but we've just got to get all the right people involved. We've got to we've got to resource up our coaches, our officials. We've got to make it easy for volunteers to get involved. And then obviously for players, we need to make sure it's as cheap and as easy as possible. It's, one of the challenges we have is, you're having to buy a helmet and pads and all the gear, similar to what ice hockey challenges is, where soccer, they grab a soccer ball and away they go. So, we've got plenty of challenges we're facing into. But, honestly, it's been a whirlwind last couple of years. Would I do it again? I don't know. I honestly don't even know. Like, it's been a grind.
You got to ask your fiance first. What she thinks.
Yeah. She'd say absolutely not.
Yeah.
Actually, when I joined Gridiron Australia, I was selling her. I was like, it's actually going to be less work, more strategy. It's more just advice, and it's been the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So, I don't have any more races up my sleeve. I think this would be it now.
You get found out pretty quick.
Yeah.
So, it's obviously.
Yeah, so what a crazy 5 years you've had. So from 2018, you were just working at your local club, and now you're the chairman of Gridiron Australia.
Yeah, it's honestly
5
been
years.
wild.
And marking the lines.
Yeah.
And I still mark the lines, right? I still love it. The things I love the most about the sport are still at my local club. I love going down and mark the field. I love going just to hang out with the guys. And honestly, even though I'm not coaching there at the moment, I'll still go down on Tuesdays and Thursday nights for pizza night just because I enjoy being around that team environment. They're the things I love. The things I love least about the sport, like with all change, right? Change is a very nervous time for a lot of people, but the sport needs to go through some change. And that's obviously really challenging and very time-consuming to manage through those things and really present to people why we need to do certain things. So that's a battle. But, 5 years, it's been... I wouldn't have thought I was going to be here 5 years ago. I was fully intending just to coach at my local club and that was it. But... I can't help myself,
Where are you going to be in 5 years' time?
Hopefully just the Croydon. Hopefully someone else is
later, Mac.
But but really,
Oh,
I don't think a lot of things are rocket science. I think we overcomplicate a lot of things, and in community sport especially, it's to make it easy to get involved. Make it as cheap as possible to be involved, and then provide opportunities for people. If they want to play at club level forever, brilliant. This is a really good environment to do it. If you want to go play in the NFL, here's how you go do it. And then everything else is noise. So trying to just take that approach to operation has worked really, really well for me. I'm not a master strategy person by any stretch of the imagination. I just believe in fundamentals, and that's sort of what's taken me through the journey.
How are you going personally, sort of 5 to 6 months into this role at Gridiron Australia? How are you going finding your feet in this role and sort of
Yeah,
managing all those challenges and like you said, all the time constraints and everything.
Look, some of the really good things about not being involved for the sport for so long are also some of the challenges. So I don't come with a lot of baggage in the sport. I don't have, I don't have a dispute with someone from 10 years ago, and I think that's what's plagued the sport for a really long time is people that have been involved for a long time come with a lot of baggage. So that's been really, really good because you can come in and go, this is a fresh set of eyes, this is how I think we need to do things, take input and advice where appropriate, and then make a decision from there. And obviously we've got a really good board that helps with that. We've got a huge range of skill sets. We've got marketing gurus, ex-Red Bull, ex-Adidas. We've got key strategy people that have been involved in rugby, key legal eagles that do all their legal stuff.
Legal eagles.
Yeah, so we've got a really good board there. But building any sport is a very time-consuming job as well. I'd hate to think about the amount of investment that the whole board and everyone from even our state directors and state board have invested in the last 4 months. Like, it is a grind, but it needs to happen. Sports don't just magically grow. The work needs to be done to get it there. And from a member perspective, our members expect us to, they want a really good product. It's really frustrating for a lot of our members that, the sport hasn't captured the growth that it could have over the last 10 years. If we were in this position 10 years ago, I think we could probably have 25, 30,000 members. So it is frustrating for them, but I feel a real obligation that we need to provide a really good product to our participants, provide a really good product and by participants everywhere from players, coaches, officials, volunteers. What's the experience like? Because I just love the sport. It's a sport like none other. It's like human chess. And it's also a great sport that anyone can get involved. I'm probably not the most athletic bloke, but I found a role within the sport that I absolutely love. Doesn't matter whether you're 360 pounds and 6'7", we've got a specialty role that you're going to be brilliant for, or whether you're 5'5" and 120 pounds wringing wet, you could be a specialist receiver. Like it's such a great sport, and we've got to get that out to the masses.
So there's still hope for you.
Why is it? Why are you both looking at me? Both look and
Still hope
laugh.
for you, Macca.
Yeah, can a 31-year-old get involved?
Absolutely. The dream's not over, mate.
We got a gentleman down at Croydon, Tommy, who has played over. I should know the numbers, but I'm pretty sure he's closing in on 400 games.
Wow.
And I reckon Tommy's. I don't want to insult him, but I reckon he's over 50 at the moment. And he's been playing since he was 17, 18. So we get heaps of guys coming down.
You got a 20-year career.
Yeah. He's hitting your prime. But
NIL's just coming in.
Yeah. Still got eligibility. So you never know. But good sport. Everyone get involved, and that's why I love it.
Beautiful. That was a massive spiel, and you knocked off about 7 of our questions. Which is awesome.
I'll come back over it.
No, but it is good. Like I want to touch on it real quick, and it's exciting to hear you say it. It does feel like we're on the cusp of just an explosion here in Australia, like at this club and state level, and having the right people in place now. It's just exciting time, I think, for the future of the sport and the future of seeing what potentially Australian athletes can do in the future. And I think that's probably a pretty exciting prospect for you guys, particularly as well, like seeing where Australians can go and take it in the future.
For sure. And it's not just our linemen. Like, obviously, we're going to be known for our punters and our linemen, right? Because we've got Mailata and obviously all the pro kick boys are everywhere. But, we've got some really, really exciting prospects. And throughout colleges and high schools, we've got some great young athletes coming up. We've got a quarterback at IMG Academy, which is brilliant.
Yeah, we spoke to him.
Tommy.
Yeah, he was a great little
He's a
chap.
ripper.
Incredible, hey?
Yeah.
Like
the stuff he was saying, he's only 15, 16. Me and
Tommy Huber.
we were like
yeah.
blown away. Like, was he part of your own way and things like that? I wasn't thinking that when I was 16.
No, I was playing PlayStation
Yeah.
every day before and after school at that age. And these kids are in America, pursuing their goals. We've got quarterbacks in Florida. We've got safeties. Again, Kaya, young running back from Melbourne here. He's actually a really interesting story, and I'll share a little bit about him. He came down to Croydon, and Croydon are by no means responsible for his success. He's just a story of determination. So this kid came down, and he couldn't catch cold when he first came down. This kid is going to be rubbish. He could not catch. And he just plugged away at it. He kept coming down, and he was as quick as lightning. I've never seen a kid move so fast. And he just kept plugging away at it. And it sort of first clicked when I'd go down there for men's training, because obviously they train on different nights, or I'd go down on a Saturday to do something, and this kid was at the field every single time. And he used to catch the train out from Box Hill, and he'd just go down the field and just run around, and you every time I'd go be there, he'd be there. And as he got more into the team, he just started going to the gym. He was going to the gym twice a day. He's only 14 at this point. And anyway, it came to the season, and he just destroyed the competition, just ran over kids, really good hands. He practiced as much as it would humanly allow. And he just started becoming really physically gifted, like he was getting massive. And through his dedication and hard work, he transferred last year to St. John Bosco, biggest high school, or best probably high school program in America. Every year they have, DJ Ungalai's younger brother was on the team this year, and they had 15, 20 Division 1 offers on the team, and we've now got a young running back from Melbourne who's on that squad. So he's entering his junior year this year. Hopefully he'll play for the varsity team. Obviously they've got so many teams under them, and we're excited about him. And I think he's got the potential to be the first Australian Division 1 running back at FBS level. And it's crazy. We're not just exporting linemen and punters anymore. We've got quarterbacks, we've got running backs, receivers. I don't know. We've got some great young receivers. Hopefully, we'll see one at a FBS Division 1 level soon.
Tight ends as well. We've got a few good tight ends.
Tight ends transfer so brilliantly. You guys had have Thomas Yasmin on as well.
We did.
Man, what a story he is. Hey, and I think Gridiron Australia's job is to amplify people like Thomas Yasmin. Right? What a brilliant story. He was obviously a really talented rugby player, and man, he was not given the respect he deserved up until this year. And then he stuck around, got some game time, and he dominated. I think he's in for a great senior year. But what a great story, right? And that's the unique opportunity that exists for Australian athletes in US sports. There's nothing like US sports. You've got young kids that I saw in Kaya, right? So he goes from playing in front of 15 people at Croydon on a Saturday afternoon, going to a high school, and they're playing in front of 20, 30,000 fans at a high school game. Madness. And then I was speaking to Jesse Williams about this. He went from playing Gridiron Queensland, transfers to Alabama, and he's playing in front of 100,000 his first game. It's like playing in front of the MCG every single weekend. So it's the opportunities that exist for them is unprecedented. And it's not just football. Use your skills to go get a free education for 4 years. It doesn't matter what college you're going to. Go get a free education for 4 years. Come back. No one's going to take that from you. And if you make something out of football at the same time, go for it. And I think that's our really unique selling point here. You can't go play AFL in the US on a scholarship. Rugby maybe eventually, but I don't think just yet. I think US sports are only going to get bigger here.
You said that the whole kind of just opened up to go from Gridiron Victoria to Gridiron Australia, but I feel like that's still a fair leap. What actually pushed you to take that leap to go to the next level?
So my role from GV to GA.
And then going from a director to the chairman, I feel like that's a bit of a leap. Yeah,
so Gridiron Australia had been fairly consistent for a long time. And what I mean by that is that the previous chairman was there for 10 years. And then Sean, who stepped in before me, Sean was also on the board for near 10 years as well. So it had been very consistent for a long time. What sort of drove me around it, it was very similar to the reason I got involved in Gridiron Victoria, was that you had states that were booming, and that you had states that we could certainly put a lot of the things that were working in other states and try to deploy them into the other states, because I think there's opportunity everywhere.
Were the northern states dominating a bit more at that time, or was it?
Look,
Croydon's the number one club in the nation, mate.
I'm saying back at that.
Largest, probably not on field at the moment, but look, it's patchy, right? And there was good things happening everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
So Western Australia is one of the only states that's grown year on year consistently for quite a while, and they do some really good stuff over there. South Australia, they've got a really dedicated bunch of people there, and they're doing some great work with their juniors. I think even the ACT have done a lot of great work around rebuilding a lot of their clubs over the last couple of years. Queensland's historically strong. Big humans up there.
Must be something in the water.
Yeah, they're big.
It's the cane time.
Victoria, has gone through phases, but really strong at the moment with juniors. And then New South Wales has gone through some peaks and troughs as well. And I think they're on the way back up now. So, I guess what really spurred me from Gridiron Victoria to Gridiron Australia was I thought there was some things that we could deploy at a national level that were going to be really effective for everyone. And they're things like, is it one way, same way? Do we all play the same divisions? Are we doing marketing from a national level? One of the challenges we had from a Gridiron Victoria perspective is that we couldn't sign major partners to a state-level organisation because you'd go and talk to... I remember we reached out to the NFL and I said, great, you guys are chatting with us, but this needs to be at a national level. Okay, that makes sense. And then with your major corporate partners, everything needs to be from a national level. I thought, okay, we can do this. And rather than complain that, I didn't think Gridiron Australia was doing enough, I went, well, okay, I'll put my money where my mouth is and I'll put my hand up and I'll join and I'll do some work and let's see if we can get some action. Everyone's got an opinion on how things should be done. Not a lot of people want to put their hand up and put the work in. So that's a challenge that every sport faces. And we want people to put their hand up and get involved in Gridiron Australia and their local states and obviously their local clubs. Great that everyone's got an opinion and opinion's good and passion's really good. We also need people to, assist and put some work in and help grow their local communities because you can have really good success if you just do the basics really, really well.
So do you have... We mentioned that we spoke to Charlotte from the NFL and they have the target of going from 1.5 million passionate fans, I think she called it, to 2.5, 3 million.
Yeah.
Do you have targets in regards to players and teams, or are we going to grow Gridiron Victoria and things like that? Or
yeah, so our goal's probably a bit more broad than that. We'll deep dive into some numbers at some point, but our goal at the moment is just to put a football in every hand. Okay, really, really simple. There we go. One down.
Two to go.
Yeah. And we'll work in conjunction with the NFL with that. So their NFL in School program, great. Every kid under 18 should pick up an American football at some point. And then from a Gridiron Australia perspective is how do we capture them within our competitions, whether it's coach picking up a football and coaching football, or a volunteer being a ball person or a down marker, or just involved as a team manager. We want to get everyone at some point holding American football. And if we can do that, everything else will fly off the back of that. In terms of hard numbers, I think, not that I'm going to recite Gridiron Australia's strategy at the moment, but I think we need really, really strong clubs firstly. I think we have a really good infrastructure in place with clubs. We've got a great footprint at the moment. Let's make sure that all our current clubs are as strong as possible in every division possible to start with. And then we build the base from there. In terms of hard numbers, I don't have a hard number. I think flag football's got immense opportunity, and I have visions that I can go down to Albert Park on a Thursday night, have a few beers, play a bit of pick-up flag football, go home, and that's my involvement in American football. Like, how good would that be? It's way better than playing touch rugby or ultimate frisbee. Go play some yeah. So I think we've got a great opportunity to get huge amounts of members that way, and I think tackle football, I think the growth corridors are, especially junior football. Our most inquired age groups are, forget 16, 18-year-olds. We're getting kids that are inquiring at 9, 10, 11 years old now, and I think that's a really big opportunity. Let's get them involved in football as young as possible, young boys and girls. There's really good opportunities that exist for both boys and girls now, locally, whether they play for the state, Australia. There's flag football scholarships now for our ladies. What an opportunity to go get a 4-year education, play flag football. Yeah, incredible. So, yeah, ample opportunity, but there's no set number. I think we just got to focus inwards on making our grassroots competitions as strong as possible. I look back at some of the other sports I've been involved in, like motorsport was a really good example, where they focus on the top tier of competition and they funnel a lot of the resources towards that top tier of competition. Motorsport does it horribly bad. And what it ultimately does is drive up participation costs at grassroots, when really we should be focusing on making it as cheap as possible to get involved. And it's economies of scale at that point. More money comes into the game, you can afford the things at a national level. But certainly we should never sap money from grassroots to prop up elite level competition. That might be not what a lot of people want to hear, but that's the way to grow the game.
Yeah, helps having a banker involved.
Yeah. I seen some funny commentary the other day. Someone's like, yeah, you've got a banker now, and they're only interested in making money. Gridiron Australia. I'm like, yeah, we're interested in the sport making money. Like the sport needs to make money.
Yeah.
Money solves a lot of problems. Okay, money pays for equipment. Money pays for coaching development. Money pays for officiating development. It pays for volunteers, and ultimately drives down the cost of participation. We as a sport want to bring in as much money as we can. Now, we don't want to bring it in from participants. That's a very important distinction, because if you have a member pays model, it's never sustainable, because obviously, Joe Smith is ultimately paying for the operating of the sport. But we want to get as much money as we can from corporate partners, from government partners, whoever can give us money, we want it, because it drives down cost of participation. Yeah. So, yeah. I thought that bank comment was funny. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what we want.
You're
I don't know
right.
if you've
You
heard,
just
but
see it the wrong way. You're right.
yeah, interest rates are climbing as well. Like, that's not going to help anyone be able to fork out $300, $400, $500 to play.
It's not like, so we just cancelled our national tournament. Did not go down well. And that's understandable, right? It was a big event for a lot of our participants, but ultimately the cost of participation was too high, and people can't afford it. They can't afford $1,200, $1,500 to be spending a week away from work to go play in a football competition, which would be brilliant, and we want to do it, and we want to make it as cheap as possible. But the reality is, it's just things are expensive at the moment. Rates have gone through the roof. Cost of everything's expensive. Cost of travel's expensive. Flying X amount of people to Wollongong or Sydney or anywhere for that matter is expensive. So, we've got a lot of challenges we're facing into, and we've got to make it. If we're going to come back to anything, it's just got to be cheaper for people to participate. Everyone's got to get involved, and it doesn't matter whether you're from Toorak or whether you're from...
Ooh, where's he going to say?
Croydon? Croydon. I was going to say Broadmeadows, but I'll say Croydon. Or I'm a big Geelong man, Corio for that matter. You've got to have the same opportunities in the sport that exist. Doesn't matter where you're from and how much money you've got. It can't be a user pay model. You look at tennis, right? Tennis is a good example of, you've got enough money, you'll get in front of the right coaches, and you'll probably be a pretty good tennis player. Football, we got to make sure that we don't do that. It's got to be, if you've got the raw athletic talent, there is a real lap over of people that come from low socioeconomic backgrounds, traditionally convert at a higher rate to be elite level athletes. So we want to make sure that all those athletes get the opportunity to compete as much as they can. And we need money to do that. We need participants to do that. But it's a bit of a one step, not back, but sideways, to take 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
So you said that you've cancelled the Nationals. Is there a plan to replace it, or are we talking a little bit further down the line?
Yeah, so there is. So what we've done in the interim is that states will play each other, but just in a non-nationals format. So Queensland's playing New South Wales across each of their 3 divisions. Victoria juniors will play Queensland. They'll go up there. There's a competition that's being organised between SA, ACT, and Victoria for their juniors as well. So we still want to facilitate representative opportunities, but it's just not in a camp-style nationals environment. I think moving forward, a lot of it's cost-driven, how much we can bring in and subsidise the cost or drive costs down for participants. If I was to say, what is my ideal goal? You'd have a nationals every year. Is it sustainable? I don't know. I think eventually it will be. I just don't know how quickly we can get there. Whether we do it in the years before we go to, say, World Championships, maybe. I think there's a lot more appetite for our juniors to participate a lot more frequently than our seniors, just because they have less commitments. Not that school's not a commitment, but you can slip them in during school holidays is where adults typically have to take time off work, and there's a raft of other family commitments and other things. So there is a short-term stopgap. We want to provide representative opportunities, and then what's that going to look like next year and the year after? I'd love it to be the Nationals next year, but I don't want to commit and for it to not get ahead, because that's not going to be good for anyone.
Still good that you're managing to get states to compete, despite it not being like a big national
origin
tournament.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And why that's so critical is that a lot of our state-based comps play 9-man football, so they just have 2 less linemen, okay? But a lot of our juniors that want to go get scouted over in college need 11-man football film. And typically, one of the only chances to get that is representative football. So it's really important for our juniors to get these representative opportunities. They get really good film they can send to the States. You send 9-man football to America,
We're laughing at you.
like, okay, that's cool, but you're not reading. It's really just pick a receiver, make first read, throw it. If not, go to second read, and away you go.
So is it the edge rushes and stuff you're taking out?
Yeah, and two linemen. So you can substitute a couple of things. You can put a tight end on the line to simulate a half line and some other things. But the field is so much more open, and you find that just the best athletes will dominate, and they can run all over each other. So, they are really important games for not just we want to do it, but it's also quite strategically important as well. And then from a participant perspective, you don't want to be involved in a sport that you don't have an opportunity to compete at a higher level. So, you want to be able to test yourself against the best in every state, ultimately the best in every country, because it really benchmarks where you are. I caught up with, when Adam Gotsis was in town, actually he was in Collingwood, of all places, and good Abbotsford boy, just down the road, but he was down at a couple of our local training sessions, and one of the things that really stood out to me was when he was speaking, he said that, as he was going through his progressions, he sort of got there and went, hey, like I can hang with these guys, and he just kept going, and then you go to the next level up, and he was, you compete with them. And that's why I think those pathways are really important, because it allows kids to go, or adults to go, yeah, I'm actually decent. Not just in my head. The NFL isn't this completely unobtainable goal, or college football isn't this completely unobtainable goal. I do have the athletic ability. I can now compete against the best that I can compete against, and that sort of spurs me to go on with my career. So yeah, it's important.
Do you think, sorry, Danny, do you think flag football, we mentioned a bit earlier, it's like, it's its own sort of pathway, and like they've talked about it becoming a professional in the States and possibly in the LA Olympics, I think, 2032, whenever that is. That's obviously a pathway. Is that going to be a pathway onto its own sort of league, or do you think maybe that could feed into getting younger kids at a grassroots level in Australia, and then they could come across to more sort of NFL, like proper 11-man football? Or do you see that as more of a way of funneling younger kids into Gridiron and things like that, or it's going to be its own separate pathway in the future? Yeah,
I think they're connected, and they're also not connected. So to what you just said, I think flag football is a really good way to get kids involved at an earlier age, especially at the primary school level. I think it allows them to develop those basic skills earlier, and we want to get people learning skills as early as possible in life with football. I think it's, if at 12 years old you decide that you don't want to play full contact football, but you still love American football, there's a pathway for you to continue with that, and that's through social competition, or organised, flag competitive leagues. I think when you get to an adult level, they're very different sports. And in the research that we've done, the people that are interested in flag football aren't interested in contact, and vice versa. Like, they follow it, but a lot of our flag football participants don't want to play full contact, and our full contact guys and girls don't want to play flag. So that's interesting. And so in some sense, we need to treat them as separate codes when they get to that higher level or competitive style.
Whatever that age is that they want to make that decision.
When they want to branch out, that's cool. They're separate codes, but I think certainly at the feeder level, definitely, it's a great opportunity to get people involved in tackle football as early as possible. And the pathways that exist through flag now are so incredible that I think you'll see a lot of people focus on that as their primary pathway. Not that I think it's going to hurt tackle football, but I think it'll be, if you're a rugby sevens participant and there's an opportunity for you to represent Australia in the Olympics. I don't know, is rugby sevens still in the Olympics? Probably is. Yeah. But
I think so.
Let's say you're a fringe AFLW player, right? And you're sort of on the stretch of getting a permanent gig, but you're quite not. Well, hey, you can specialise in flag football, potentially represent Australia and go to the Olympics. I think that's a really cool thing.
Huge drop, yeah.
And there is now, I believe, a women's pro league in the States. So there are some semi-pro leagues in tackle football for women. Now there's a full pro flag football competition. I think you'll also see the NFL will move more towards flag. I don't know how sustainable the current version of American football is with concussions and the focus around it. I think they'll be forced to make modifications to the game at some point. And I think you'll see elements of flag football in that. I don't know in what sense, but just reading the room, I get nervous around. I don't know if the current form of American football is sustainable for another 15 years. So yeah,
interesting.
Wow,
heard it here first.
Danny, do you have it? You were.
Oh no, I was just going to touch on, because you said before when we were talking about nationals, you said you might only host the tournaments if there's going to be like a world competition. How often are they happening?
So they're typically every 3 to 4 year cycle. Okay, so our women's played in Finland last year, actually won their first international game last year, which is
the Outback. Is
that
right? Yeah,
the Outback. So huge achievement, and they done incredibly well. And considering we only have 2.5 active competitions in Australia for women's participants. For them to get to an international level and compete against the USA, Canada, a lot of the European teams, they're very structured and organised. Great Britain has a huge competition. They've done incredibly well. Another really good example of our Australian athletes, pound for pound, are as good as anywhere. The junior competitions, there's one next year in Canada, the Junior World Championships, and then men's will likely be the year after. So every 3 to 4 years they'll work on a cycle, and a good opportunity. There's actually a lot of scouting that goes on at those competitions as well, because they're competing against genuine, talent from around the world. Adam Gotts played for Australia. I believe Matt Leo actually played as a tight end. Don't quote me on that.
Tight end.
Sorry, Matt, if I messed that up.
He's a big fan of this.
Yeah, he good man. And Jesse played for Australia as well. So there's a good opportunity for those guys to get scouted at that level. I think again with just the current climate, last year's got cancelled. I think for men's, which was in Germany. Just the cost of participation was really, really high for those guys. So I think some of the challenges we face on a national front are also faced on an international level as well, around, is it sustainable for it to be a X amount participation, spend a week off work and go play in a world championship? But saying that, it's doable. You look at ice hockey and how they send so many teams to their world championship events every year. Like it's doable. It's just, we need to get some proper funding into the sport and the right people involved.
You've mentioned that we had Adam and Jesse both down here. I saw a couple of photos on the Gridiron Australia, like Instagram and stuff like that. How big is that for the clubs and the kids and stuff like that when they actually come? Like, I could imagine them showing up. Like, Jesse's massive.
Yeah.
Like, being a 14, 15-year-old kid and looking up and seeing him and thinking, holy shit. But how big is it for them to come, and can we expect more players to come back and do things like that?
Yeah, it's something that we're really trying to do with our current college and NFL guys. And not saying, hey, come back to the sport and give us a heap of things, okay? Because we just want to pay you the respect for doing what you've done. And if you want to come down to the local club and get involved, like, there is nothing better for the sport than that for us. And we've got a lot of college guys in college at the moment that we hope to be able to provide opportunities for they can come back and get involved in their off season and just have a good time. I think for our junior players especially, it's that really critical link of, this is all attainable for me. Even though I'm a local kid from Geelong or Bendigo, we got a kid that drives in from just past Shepparton for training. Drives 2 hours training every single way, 2 nights a week. For those guys, this is attainable. Like, even though I'm a kid from Shepparton, I can go play in the NFL because here's a guy who I'm standing next to now who's done it, who's got a very similar story to me. The other really good thing that those guys do is that they don't sugarcoat anything. They tell you completely raw what it takes to compete, not just locally, but when you get to the States for the first time, and then to progress through to the NFL. And there is nothing like US sports around the structure and framework and competitive nature of it. They go from, we've got kids that go from training once or twice a week here, they go to the States, going to camp, and they're training twice a day, 6 days a week. And it's, it's funny, when we had our US coach come to our local club, we had people rocking up late or not turning up to training. And I said, what happens in the States? He goes, we've never had anyone turn up late since, obviously at Indiana. He's like, we don't have anyone that turns up late. And I was like, it's just a culture shock, right? So, those guys don't sugarcoat things. This is the raw ingredients that it takes to succeed. It's up to you guys whether you want to do that. And they hear it from the horse's mouth. It's incredible. So good having those guys down there. They put a lot of behind the scenes. A lot of those guys invest a lot into the sport, a lot of hours, and they give a lot back to the sport. It's not always seen, but it's always appreciated as well. And hopefully we can get more of our college guys back, even our high school kids back, and just down and sharing their wisdom and knowledge, because it's so invaluable.
That's definitely the way we've kind of trying to show off these college kids and high school kids that are doing great things and show it that, like you said, it's attainable and you can make it even if you're, a 31-year-old that's given up on his AFL. No one in particular. But
what's so frustrating from the Australian media is that they don't understand how big an achievement a lot of this is. Like, Adam's going to his 8th or 9th year now, just been signed by the Jags again.
Huge.
Yeah,
That
another
is-
2 years.
That's a story that is incredible.
Yeah.
Got a guy from Abbotsford here who, ex-AFL played at AFL in his junior career, dominated locally. We actually have a rule in Victoria called the Gotsis rule, where I don't know if it's officially known, it's unofficially known as the Gotsis rule, where if you're so good at a junior level, you can't play against the juniors because he was just so big and physical. He was hurting people. So they pushed him up into the senior competition. It's a Gotsis rule.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of age were you pushing him up?
It was before my time, but
Yeah.
I believe he was playing with men's at like 16, 17, because he was just running over everyone. So yeah, it's and I've lost my train of thought here. I've gone on a run with Adam, but Australian media. So Adam's such an incredible Australian athlete, and he's done some incredible things. And in my mind, he's someone like Paddy Mills, right? Paddy's done incredible things over there as well. But I think if you ask the average everyday sports punter,
It's a household name.
yeah, not a lot of people know Adam Gotsis. You look at Thomas Yasmin. What he's done at a college level is unbelievable. Look at Jesse Williams. 2 times a national champion, won a Super Bowl. I think a lot of sports people don't know their names, and we need to do a better job as Gridiron Australia helping them have a platform here locally, because what they do is so incredible. And for nothing more, we just want to say you guys have done a brilliant job. Thank you for everything you've done, and their stories of success will do more for the sport here locally than any marketing that Gridiron Australia could ever do off its own back.
Imagine, just think of Jesse Williams. Like, imagine there was an AFL player who, college system, we don't quite have the same, but, won 2 VFL flags, won an AFL flag, got cancer, and now is doing massive things in grassroots football. He'd be enormous.
Yeah, and there's an ex-NFL player that I'd never say their name, but it always gets brought up in topic of conversation with the Australian media. They talk about Australian NFL players, and they talk about this particular person that got into a lot of trouble in America and has got into a lot of trouble since they got back. I go, that's not the example that you want to use. We've got all these incredible stories of athletes that have gone and competed at the top level, and you want to talk about an ex-NRL player that went over, played some preseason games.
You've all but said his name.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? Yeah. We've got all these amazing stories. They're the ones you got to be telling, because they're 100 times better.
And Jesse would have been there the same time, wouldn't he? Of the player we're not mentioning.
Yeah, I'm unsure.
Similar. It would have been close to some crossover, but it is. It does seem like a battle to get them promoting like the good stories, and
it's hard. I think it's hard for the Australian media to understand how big college sport in America is, because obviously college sport is so huge. Like you're saying, there's 100,000 people going there to watch their college team play. Yeah, and I don't think Australians really understand that as a whole. Like obviously, sport fans generally will, because they'll have an idea, because they understand any professional sport that probably comes through the college system in America if you follow American sports. But Australians as a whole, I don't think they really quite comprehend how big the college system is and how important it is. And all these Australian athletes are doing so well over there, it's just not spoken about.
No, and look at even Pro Kick, right? I don't know if you guys have had the guys from Pro Kick on.
We've had players, but not quite.
Wow.
We'll get there.
What a brilliant success story that is. And they are funneling 30-odd players through to Division 1 colleges every single year. That is unheard of almost anywhere else in the world. There are some probably other similar examples, but what those guys have done here locally in Melbourne and now nationally, incredible. And I think, you look at the national championship this year. We had there was punters at Georgia, Alabama, a lot of the major programs now, unless they come from Australia, they don't want to know about them, which is it's completely changed the way college football scouting is done for punters. And that's homegrown here in Melbourne, and not a lot of people know about it. It's incredible. But again, that's the job of Gridiron Australia and everyone really, to help amplify those stories, because they're brilliant. There's a lot of really, really talented athletes out there.
I think
we've been doing our best. We've been doing our best to pump them up,
We're getting there.
We're trying to get them all on. Get all the college and high school.
One.
We get every Australian that's ever touched American football on. That'd be great.
Or listening at least.
Yeah.
We got a couple of questions left each, but just wanted to thank you for your time coming on and being a part of this. Like you said, we've had Wade, we've had Charlotte. It'd be good to have you and Wade in the room together. That'll be that's a goal of mine, to get you guys in the same room, get the banter up there. But just want to really appreciate your time and coming on and chatting with us. But do you boys have a
I've got one. So obviously we've spoken about so much of what you're doing now. Where do you see Gridiron Australia in the next 5 years?
Really good question. I think there's probably a couple of layers to that, right? How do I want to see? Well, how do I see Gridiron Australia at a local level? I would love for our juniors and our men's and women's competitions to be so strong that it's accessible to everyone. And when I say accessible to everyone, I have visions that, Saturday morning, you got your local under sevens comp down there. You got mum and dads on the sideline, holding clipboards, helping coach. Probably know 2/5 nothing about the sport, but they're on the sideline getting involved. And that's what I see as a real success measure. People just involved in the sport. Where do I see it? At a pathways and at a representative level, I think we've got tremendous opportunity here for the sport to grow in terms of numbers, and I hope that within 5 years that we have a national level competition. That's probably different to what Wade said, but I think we've got the ability to do that at some point, whether it's Melbourne plays Sydney, or there's an East Coast conference and a West Coast conference. Who knows? I think it's attainable at some point. I just don't know how far along that journey that is. And I think from a player development opportunity, I think you'll see a lot of Australians in US high schools, colleges, and NFL programs. 10 to the power of what we've got at the moment. I think you'll really see some injection of talent in there in the next couple of years.
Beautiful. Exciting things. My question is a bit more on the personal side for you. So I was doing a bit of research, perusing your Instagram. You're on private, so I'm going to have to follow you. But I noticed you've got your FinCat one linked, and then is it Imitari?
Yeah.
Yeah. So are they your... You do obviously a bit of photography. That's all your images?
Just I'm a local hack photographer.
Yeah.
I just passionate about doing anything I can for the game, really, right? So... Actually, it all stemmed from the fact that I was, as part of Croydon, I was like, we need to have better visibility here and better presence.
As part of your social media presence and all that sort of stuff.
So I brought a little camera and started going out and taking photos, and I look back now and they were horrible. And I sort of just got more and more into it. I think I've got like a addictive personality, so it doesn't matter what I do, I just hone in on it. So I got really into photography now. And I just sort of wander around, take photos of people. I obviously don't charge anyone for them. I just love taking photos and putting them out there. So got into a little bit of video recently. So if you see me on Instagram, I'm always around just taking photos of different players. And I think the way we present the sport's really important, and having that sort of American sort of urban-y, sort of gritty feel to it is really cool to me. And that's sort of what I try to do through my photography. I learn a lot from different people around the sport, which is really good. And Jesse's obviously a really keen photographer. He's actually an exceptional portrait photographer, and he's constantly bullying me about how bad my photos are. But just a bit of a side project, really.
Yeah.
I had to get it away from my personal Instagram feed because people unfollow me. I was sick of seeing my photos. So I was like, just put them in a different area. But it's good fun.
No, it was cool. I found that. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm going to give it that a follow.
We do some cool stuff. And hopefully with these representative tournaments, I'll get some more cool photos. And hopefully when I get back over to the States, I can take some more as well.
Awesome.
When is the next plan to get to the States?
I was actually trying to go over it this time. So actually last year I got to spend 2 weeks at North Carolina. I got to shadow our old coach. I was just a fly on the wall for 2 weeks, and I hope to do that again. Hopefully, I don't know if I'll get over this year. It's probably going to be next year again now. Wherever Coach Lee Rose goes, hopefully I can convince him to take me under his wing for 2 weeks again. But that's a really cool experience to spend some time in a college program. I was completely blown away. I look at North Carolina. They had not just their suite of coaching staff, but they had their recruiting staff. They had 5 nutritionists. That's all for a team of 70 kids or whatever they have on their roster. Incredible. So hopefully get over there again. I'm a big Texas man, Texas Longhorns man. I'm riding the Arch Manning wave at the moment. We've got some really exciting prospects. I think we're going to have a good year. I say that every year though, but this year in particular, I think we're really, really good.
Yeah.
So I'll retract that. If we start really, really well, I'll try to get over there for the last couple of games.
Cool.
If you need 3 guys to just shadow you while you're shadowing them, we can find a couple. I've got a couple of questions to finish off. You Croydon, now the number 1 biggest team in
Biggest
Australia.
team, but we're not number one.
We're saying number one in Australia. Victoria, Gridiron Victoria is number one in Australia, and Gridiron Australia is definitely number one in Australia.
Yep.
How do we get you on board with Any Given Sunday as a chairman to bring us to number one in Australia?
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. Yeah, you guys have. Every time I open the Gridiron Australia Instagram feed, I see a post of yours. So, it's very visible. Now, you guys are doing a great job. And I love what you guys are doing. I think you do a great job of amplifying the message of American football. I love what you guys have done around getting people like Charlotte and Wade on board. Like, it's cool to tell the stories of not just the NFL guys and the college guys, but grassroots as well. And hopefully we can get a couple of our high school kids on the potty as well at some point and chat with them about their experience about moving to the States. That'd be really cool, I think.
100%, for sure. 100%. And you said that you started out the humble beginnings of a wide receiver coach.
Yeah.
So you've seen 3 athletes here. Which one are you picking up to go?
If
I've got big mittens. I can.
Listen,
It's a very small ball. It's a very small ball.
I reckon we've got positions for all 3 of you boys out of Croydon. So pre-season starts in July. So I'll certainly be in the DMs in July and see if we can recruit you out for pre-season at minimum.
I can paint a good line.
I'll hold you to that.
Spots open everywhere, mate.
Friday afternoons, we're out there, we're marking the field. It's a therapeutic experience. I do it just to break my week up. So certainly come out and jump on the paint machine. It's good fun.
Sounds like a plan. Beautiful. All good.
Awesome, yeah.
Thank you very much, mate. We'll let you get back to your busy day, and hopefully we do plan on getting you back on the pod at some point as well. So
I appreciate having me on. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Thank you.
good man. Well done. That was good.